Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Azure Every Day. I'm Chris Sefurlis, Senior Principal Architect over here at Pragmatic Works. And today we're going to talk about how Azure is driving identity security in banking using biometric identification. Okay, so this is kind of an off topic, kind of interesting, right? But by combining biometrics with artificial intelligence, banks are now being able to take new approaches at verifying the digital identity of their prospects and customers. Okay. Um, for those of you who don't know, biometrics is the process to uniquely identify a person's physical and personal traits that are then recorded into a database and captures that image or whatever it happens to be into some sort of electronic device. And it's used as a unique form of identification. Some of the methods that we use for biometrics are things like fingerprint recognition, hand geometry, odors and scents, iris or eye scans, DNA checks, and also facial recognition. So you've probably used a bunch of them, with fingerprint readers and facial recognition, things like that. Because of their uniqueness, basically they're more reliable, right, in confirming a person is who they say they are than things like a password or an access card, right? You think about a scenario in today's day and age where we are becoming more of a digital world and we're doing less and less transactions in person, right? So when you go to a bank, in the old days, you would go and you had your bank book and you would go and walk in and take a deposit leave a deposit or take a withdrawal, and they would, stamp your book and then they hand it back to you. For the younger generation, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But this is how we started, and then we moved to like ATMs, and those were another good way to pull out. You had your card and your PIN, which was a form of two-factor authentication, and then we moved on to digital banking over the last 15 years or so, and they've tried a lot of different forms of two-factor authentication. Some great, some not so great, some very annoying because they need to be secure and stuff like that. So a lot of different ways that this has been approached, and the need is clearly there for these forms of authentication because it's very security related and sensitive for the users. Now, how do you verify somebody is a person they say they are if they're not in person? In the old days, you would look at their ID card and maybe have a second form of identification and confirm them and look at the picture and look at the person and make sure that the ID card was valid, check for a watermark or a hologram or something like that. But it's really hard to do if they're remote. So Microsoft partners are now leveraging some of the Azure platform offerings, such as Cognitive Services Vision API and Azure Machine Learning tools for performing multi-factor authentication in the banking industry. So basically the way it works is the user provides a government-issued ID, like a license or a passport or something like that, and they validate it against standards provided by the ID issuer, right? So we're building our algorithm for verification of that ID, right? And we're putting that into a database. So when somebody submits an ID from Massachusetts, we know what that is supposed to look like, and we look for all the distinguishing features of that ID. Now, to take the next step further, the second factor is they're using facial recognition software on things like your phone or your computer. So something like Face ID for the iPhone, which anybody who has an iPhone is familiar with, and probably all the commercials that you see, it will take your photo, but it'll also take a video of you and force you to move your head in certain motions. So it'll say turn your head right and turn your head left, look up and look down and go around, right? So it'll give you all of these things that it wants you to do in order to verify and validate, first of all, that you're not a fake, you're not wearing a mask. You've seen some pretty crazy sci-fi movies where you put somebody's face on or whatever, but then also that you're alive, right? So it's pretty crazy stuff when you think about it, but you have to go to these lengths to verify that somebody is who they say they are, and you can only go so far when they're not right in front of you. So it takes the picture of your ID, it then matches it to your facial construction, and compares them side by side. And as long as those match, that becomes your digital signature. And this is what it's used. It's for your digital footprint or your digital signature, if you will. And this is something that's considered to be extremely secure because now you've got two forms of verification, and you're using biometrics, right? So, granted, this is still in the early phases of what we'll see, but it's really cool technology. It's really interesting to see how it's being used, and we should really look to see what's going to happen in the future because it's going to be pretty cool. So cognitive services and machine learning tools from Azure are right in our core competency. We've got some great consultants doing work in those areas. And anything that's data related and Azure related, we're doing some great work there. So love to help out. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, thoughts, click the link below. Let's talk through it and figure out what we can do to help out. Otherwise, I appreciate you listening and have a great day. Thanks again.